Well, I think for me, it's probably a pretty selfish reason. I, I was and remain brokenhearted at the struggles my girls had, and continue to have as young adults. I mean, they because they carried that secret for so long, they really never have been able to talk about it. And I know, I mean, they're beautiful, smart, amazing young women, and I wish they had not felt so lonely and sad when they were young. And so I think it's kind of selfish. Like, I feel like now I get to see, when I see kids changing, when I see sadness lifting, it lifts some of the sadness from me. You know, it's interesting. I think sometimes about, like, wow, this is such a little problem. You know, it's such a little problem and such a little solution. Like, and there's this and there's this. And I remember actually when we first started, everybody would say, well, you have to have mentoring and you have to have, you know, scholarships and you have to, and pretty soon I figured out that if we were going to have a successful program, it had to have a small mission that we stuck to, that we had to stay on point, that we couldn't be everything to everybody. So sometimes I think, God, there's so many other things I should be doing too, but it's just such a gift to see a change in a person. It makes everything feel better. What I love most is the way, sort of makes me choke up actually, the way the space becomes so sacred. It's an almost impossible thing to describe, but I think what happens is, you know, we have another rule which is really important, which is nobody has to say why they're there. And so people come, and it's understood that you're coming because you have a relationship to incarceration. If you're not ready to talk about it, if you don't want to tell anybody what that is, that's cool. Most people, at first, don't want to talk about it. Almost everybody, within a week or 2 weeks, you can see all the shame and fear of talking about this particular subject drop away. And when you're in the room, you can just feel the way that everybody in there cares about each other. They all have each other's backs. It's remarkable. And then I listen to them talk about it, and they talk about being each other's family. They talk about loving each other. They talk about how when they walk down the hall, they'll like wave at each other because they, you know, and they're not necessarily friends. It's 9th graders through 12th graders, and, you know, crosses all racial boundaries, all boundaries. So they're not necessarily like all best friends, but they all really feel connected to each other. And that, I get to share that space, is just remarkable to me. And then we have a writing component, a creative component. So I also get to read their stories and see their drawings and hear their hearts. Well, I should say that what happened after the first club launched was I had this idea that, wait, we need to have this in every school in America. So be careful what you wish for, I guess I would say, because so we launched it at 501c3 a few months, about 5 months after we launched the Venice Club. And honestly, I'm a writer and an editor, and that's what I've done all my life, and a teacher. And I had no idea how to be an executive director of an organization. I had no idea what it meant to actually start a nonprofit and keep it going and have it grow the way P.O.P.S is growing. So I'm learning all the time. I spent the second year, I was in an executive director's training program and began to learn all the things I had no idea how to do. So the hardest thing for me has been allowing myself to understand that it can't all happen at once. That much as I would like there to be a club in every school, I want them to be strong and supported, and I want the organization to be able to support them, and that takes some infrastructure growth. So that's what's hardest for me. I wish in the beginning, in the very beginning, the first year or so, I knocked my head against a wall a little bit because I thought I had to grow this very logically. And I thought, okay, well, I'm in an LAUSD school. I should logically go just to grow it through LAUSD and start there and kind of grow out from there. And I did knock my head against a wall a lot because there were a lot of doors that were closed. And I think that first year, it's hard to remember exactly, but I think that first year I felt, although the club at Venice was dynamic and growing and powerful, I was frustrated by my inability to get it into other schools. Well, what gradually started happening was, we call it the magic, because gradually what started happening was individuals came to us. And when that happens, like when there's a teacher or a student or an administrator or a counselor who comes to us and wants to bring it to the school, it works like magic. When I'm just knocking on doors and trying to explain it, it's a much harder uphill climb. But we've had extraordinary teachers coming to us, extraordinary kids writing to say, how do I get this at my school for people like me? And those are the ones that work. So I guess I just wish I'd known to follow the magic in the beginning. Now I do.
Thank you for watching A Wise Way. Subscribe to stay updated, share to pass the knowledge, or view our other videos on the left.